Oh, you've been dating for 6 months. Didn't know you had a child. Oh, well, I didn't know I didn't know that that mattered. Why does it matter? You're not dating my child or dating me. You're absolutely right. But your child is a big part of who you are.
What's up, fam? Welcome back to our channel. My name is Tim. This is my beautiful wife, Pauline, and you're tuning in to another episode of the W Podcast, where you get wisdom in the world with the
Wheeler.
Hey, so we are so excited to be back. We have an amazing topic today. But first, I got a little commercial break. And we're really excited because next week, it's been a while since we did this, but next week we are doing a live masterclass for free, September 25th at 8:30 p.m. It's called Unlock Your Dream Relationship. So whether you found somebody and you're dating and things are going well, or you're still looking to find that person, this event is going to help you take your next step in your dating journey. And we're going to give you some keys that we have found and help others find along the way to really make sure that once you get the relationship, things go as planned and you can really make sure you can set up yourself to have that dream of a healthy relationship. So if you're interested, go to the show notes. Go to our Instagram page, TikTok, whatever. We're going to have all the details there. It's absolutely free. Wednesday, September 25th, 8:30 p.m. We are so excited. All right, the commercial break is over, but I had to get that out there up front because I'm so excited about it, and I just had to get that out my head so we can focus on this episode, because today, I really think this is going to be one of our best episodes, because we're talking about how do you know if you have found a good man. Now, this is something you should be able to easily talk about, right?
Should. Just kidding.
Should is crazy.
You said should. I just repeated what you said.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to say should. You just put, you the best, baby.
Oh.
I'm trying to give you wins.
This podcast is about you.
I'm trying to give you brownie points.
How you going to try to give points about yourself? I don't think that's how it works.
But in all seriousness, we're looking forward to talking about this because it's important. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, if you're not dating a good man, you're going to set yourself up for a lot of heartbreak. Have you ever dated somebody that you would say is
I honestly just really don't even like that term, good man.
Let's talk about it. That's why we have a podcast.
Oh my gosh. Somebody is just full of energy. I love that. Yeah, I don't like that term because, this is a podcast about, or a podcast by and for people who follow Christ and who want to follow him and follow him closer. And the Bible talks about, who is good but the Lord, and that is so true. And I think that it's just such a cultural point of confusion, like, oh, he's a good guy, she's a good girl, am I a good guy, am I a good man, whatever. As you can totally be it's just kind of just raises the questions of, like, by whose standards are you good? And by the Lord's standards, none of us are good. So, based off of that, from what the very small understandings, that I have of the Bible, I don't like that term.
So I agree with you, but in the same sense, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, okay, so are you saying there's no bad men?
There are a lot of bad men, all bad men. I think it's more, if you want to talk about, like, people with good intentions or bad intentions, then that's something that maybe that fits that kind of, I understand that a little bit more. But just to say, because I don't think anyone is all of anything. I don't think one person is all bad, one person is all good. So even if you dated a bad guy at the time, like, you thought that he was bad, but maybe the next girl that he dates doesn't agree with you because he's probably a different person, hopefully.
So if somebody is dating somebody, how do they know if this is somebody that they should continue to date? Because I hear you,
yeah,
but we're about practicality. Let's be practical.
I like the heart of the conversation of, like, how do I know if this is somebody that I should give a chance, or somebody that I should continue getting to know, or somebody that would make a great husband. Those types of questions. Somebody who has the kind of what quality should I be looking for in a spouse? Those types. They all kind of fall under the same umbrella, just different YouTube podcast. Click.
So what would you say?
About what?
If someone said, how do I know if this guy that I'm dating is good? I know you don't like that, but for the sake of the podcast, what would you say if somebody, how do I know if this is the good person for me?
A good person
for you? Good guy.
Yeah, I think it's just a very there's a better question to ask. So if somebody asked me that, like, oh, I'm dating this guy, I don't know if he's a good guy or not. It's like, well, what do you know about him? That would be my like kind of first response. It's probably not what you want me to say.
All right. So since Pauline has, I don't know what you feeling today.
I mean,
it's okay. I got something I was saying
because you're a straightforward guy.
I hear what you're saying about what Jesus said. Why you call me good? Only God is good. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, we all know from a human perspective there's a difference between that's a good guy and that's a bad guy. And I would say that a good man, and let's just say a godly man, is a man who is trying to be like Jesus.
Right.
Now, if a man is trying to be like Jesus, and don't worry, we are going to get so practical in this episode, I promise. But if it's somebody who's trying to be like Jesus, we got to think, well, who did Jesus try to be like? What kind of man was Jesus? And Jesus himself told us that he tried to be like his Father, which is God. And if you read your Bible, you know that the Bible describes God as love. Mm-hmm. So I broke that down to say, all right, well, what is love? And good for us, the Bible actually talks about what love is. And I think that through that, we can actually get some really practical things to look at and identify, hey, this is how you know for sure if a man is truly trying to be good. Intentions.
This would apply for women as well, too.
Absolutely. But we're going to focus on men.
Why?
Because that's the episode. So, let me just read the verse for you. It says, so Jesus explained, I tell you the truth, the Son can do nothing by himself. And that's the wrong verse. Praise the Lord. But let's read that verse anyway. So, I mentioned how Jesus said that he only does what his Father does. So that's what I'm reading here. So Jesus explained, I tell you the truth, the Son can do nothing by himself. He only does what he sees the Father doing. Whatever the Father does, the Son also does. So just in case you wanted to know, what verse is he talking about? Because I ain't never heard Jesus say that. There you go. Now, 1 Corinthians 13:4. A lot of you may know this verse because it is read at a lot of weddings. But I think sometimes when you hear something so much, you become overfamiliar with it. And you don't seek to understand, okay, how does this actually apply to me today? Mm-hmm. So let's just go over it. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It's not irritable. It keeps no record of being wrong. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. And please hear us. We are not saying that a man needs to be embodying these or is going to be embodying these at every second, every day, because nobody is perfect. What we're saying, as Pauline mentioned earlier, is a good man is going to try and intend to do these things consistently. Mm-hmm. That's the key word, because anybody can do one of these things on a given day.
Sure.
But can you be consistent? Is something you really want to see. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I would also add that it's not even about does this person embody all these aspects of love all the time, like you said, but I think it's more of like, do they want to? So when they don't, when he does have a short temper, does he come back around and apologize and say, hey, I really dropped the ball, whatever, and apologize and kind of acknowledge his shortcomings? Or is he the type of person that says, that's just how I am and you need to deal with it, or get out, like, this is me, this is how I am. There's so much of that. There's so many kind of lines blurred, especially with our generation being so aware, which I love that about us, of like so self-aware of like who we are and our personality traits and like what we believe and how we grew up and things like that. A lot of reflection, a lot of kind of deconstructing and all of those things. But as a Christian, it's important to be able to separate, mind, body, soul, spirit, to be able to say, hey, this is who I am. These are my shortcomings. This is my personality. These are my preferences. But this is Jesus. And this is who I'm trying to be like every single day. And me and Jesus, I'm not Jesus. And like I want to be. And I, look up to him, idolize him, worship him. But I think sometimes in our lives we can say like, yeah, kind of like God, God forgives, I don't. That kind of mentality sometimes in culture where it's like, yeah, I'm not perfect. I kind of rest in my sin and my imperfections. You don't want somebody who's like that, because that kind of lets you know right there where kind of when the rubber meets the road, or when times get really hard and arguments go too far, or they're really stressed and kind of their world is falling apart. Like, are they going to lean more into themselves or more into Jesus? And of course, you want somebody who's going to lean more into Jesus, because we're talking about marriage. We're talking about somebody who you're going to link to for the rest of your life. And those hard times are going to come. They will be guaranteed. And you want to, in dating, there's so much of the, we put our best foot forward, as you should. And there's a lot of like, oh, this person's so great, everything's so romanticized. But like, what you really have to fight for in the dating stages is to see somebody at their worst. Not testing the water. Sometimes people do too much and put themselves in compromising situations in order to, I want to see what you're really like.
I want to see if you're going to take my pants off. Is that what you said?
I didn't say that. You just said that.
It's like, whoa.
Crazy.
Nah,
but,
run.
But yeah, I think it's more of like, what's this person's heart? Because, there are going to be times in your life where like being patient comes way more easy to you. And then certain things happen to you, you're changing, and maybe your patience is a lot shorter than it was before you had kids or before you had this health issue or whatever the case is. Same thing for your joy, same thing for your faithfulness, for your gentleness, all the fruits of the Spirit, all the things that embody love that the Lord writes out for us. Like, you'll always have opportunities to grow in those areas. But I think it's if that person can say like, hey, I know I'm not the most patient right now, I think that's super important.
Yeah. So I want to walk through the verse almost line by line, but really bullet by bullet, and give some practical examples. Okay, what does it actually look like for somebody to be patient and kind? What should you be looking for in the dating relationship? Because you said something really good about you got to really fight to try to see them at their worst. May sound wrong, but at least you gotta try to fight to see them at different situations, at different scenarios, because marriage is not always peaches and cream. It's not always going to be them at their best. Honestly, a lot of times in marriage, you're going to see them at their worst. You're going to see them when they wake up and their breath stink and the hair is all messed up. Like, you're going to see a lot of different sides. So in dating, one of the easiest things, patient and kind, when you go out to a restaurant, how are they treating people that they're serving? It's funny because we went out on a date, and I wasn't planning on this, but this just came up. We went on a date Friday this past weekend, and we were just being ourselves, saying thank you, being polite, and the waiter was very caught off guard that we were just doing what you should do when someone is serving you. And he brought up how he just gets so sick of people who come into the restaurant and treat him and his coworkers poorly because they think they're better than him. And that's something you really want to be mindful, especially as a Christian. Like, the Bible says that we are to love, as we're walking through right now. It also says you're supposed to treat others how you want to be treated. So if you're treating somebody who you think you're above or better than, or who's serving you poorly, how are you going to treat me as the future spouse when I get sick?
Yeah.
Or maybe something, God forbid, happens and I can no longer meet your needs? How are you going to treat me in that situation? Like, you want to look at all of those little things to help you understand what type of character this really is, because there's a lot of people who will smile and be nice at church, and then outside of church, they are not the same person. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something you want to be mindful of. And then patient. Are they patient? And patient is such a...
Do they have road rage? Yeah.
Maybe not that. No, I'm just kidding.
God's working on you.
Whoa! You would say I have road rage?
I didn't. You just gonna you look at the
because I'm learning something new. That's what you think.
Up even now.
I just want to know what you think. The truth. But no, you really do want to see. And honestly, not having sex before marriage is a form of patience.
Oh, 100%.
Like, can they be patient with your bound, or if you don't want to kiss, can they be patient to wait until the wedding day to not kiss? Or if we want to go emotionally, can they wait on you while you're getting ready for a date?
A lot of men have failed right there.
That joint.
Girls be testing out every day with that one.
Sometimes it'd be long.
Or sometimes the guys take a long time.
Okay. So the next point, or next part of the verse, it says, love is not jealous or boastful or proud. And this is so interesting. You'd be surprised that it's actually possible to be jealous of your spouse. It hasn't happened for me, but I've heard of people, not Pauline, but I've heard of people who have been like, yeah, I was actually jealous of them because maybe God has gifted them in a certain area that he hasn't gifted you, which actually is a good thing. You actually want that because you don't want to be married to the person who's your twin. That's not going to help you be the best in all that you can be. Mm-hmm. But you got to be mindful that you're not with somebody who's jealous, whether it's of you or of other people, because then that's how you start getting in marriages and people start buying cars secretly or doing financial purchases because they're trying to keep up with somebody else. Yeah. And you're like, whoa, like, why are you, we trying to get out of debt right now, or we're trying to save for this investment property. Why are you doing this? And because jealousy can bring out a lot of different sins, for lack of a better word, because if you're jealous and you're going to try to do everything you can to quiet that feeling in an unhealthy way of like, all right, well, I'm jealous that they got this job because they're making more money. Now I got to go figure out a way to make more money. It can just kind of be a snowball effect. Honestly, all sins, low key, turn into a snowball effect if you think about it. You don't get it?
Some more than others.
Of course. So, also be careful if you're dating somebody and all they do is talk about themselves. The verse talks about not dating somebody who's proud. And if they never talk about how they're serving somebody else or being a blessing to somebody else, that's just something to be mindful of, because then when you get married, they're going to expect you to be serving them and blessing them, and they're going to be confused when it's their turn to serve you, because marriage at its best is two people fighting to serve each other.
I don't think you gotta fight, but yeah, two people.
Are you just looking to just combat every single thing I say?
No, I'm just refining it.
Refining, praise God. I'm gonna be kind here.
That's always a good thing. It's always a good thing.
I'm going to not be irritable. That's the next thing. It does not demand its own way. It's not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wrong. So I kind of just did that. So I repent.
What?
I repent for
what is that?
For calling you out on what I felt
what
you were doing.
What accent is that? What dialect was that?
So that's really important, because in marriage, you're always going to make mistakes because you're human. And it's going to be really annoying if you date somebody who, why don't you ever put the dishes away? Or why do you always do this? Or why do you always do that? Now, obviously, there's room for conversations, because sometimes you need to have those conversations. But if they're bringing up something from 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 2 months ago.
I mean, not even within your relationship, but with other people. I think that's more what you need to look out for. It's like if they don't have a good relationship with someone in their family or friends, and they're asking, like, oh, what happened with this person? And they let you know, like, yeah, they're holding a grudge. Best believe that could be you too. It most likely will be you one day if they don't learn how to forgive and let go of things.
Yeah. Last thing I want to touch on is the part where it says, love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. Now, that is not easy. Those things that I just mentioned,
that's the hardest part,
are very hard, but it's also very critical, because marriage is going to have its challenges. Life is going to present challenges that can then make the marriage hard, even though it may not be an issue between the two people, but because of life, then you start to have it. There's so many times me and Pauline joke about our kids and the type of day it is, and maybe they're having a hard day, and we have to over communicate. Like, look, I'm not mad at you. I just need a second. Like, I'm just a little annoyed right now, and I easily could take my annoyance or my anger out on you, but I don't want to do that. And I think we try our best to over communicate that, so that there's never any guessing or there's never any question of where we stand. And I think that's something that's really important, because you want to be with somebody who, one, over communicates, but two, this part where it says endures through every circumstance. I think that's really going to be helpful for you to avoid divorce. Really, because at the end of the day, if you're with somebody who is trying to make it to the finish line, which is death, do us part when it comes to marriage. You want to be with somebody who is willing to go through the hard seasons and is not going to quit and run as soon as they come. But they're going to be hopeful, as the verse says, is always hopeful, and be like, you know what, even though it's hard right now, we're not going to ignore reality. We're going to work to get better. But I believe that there is more for us on the other side, and that's really crucial to having a healthy marriage. Would you agree?
Enduring?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of took it a different way.
Please share.
A lot of these things, I feel like it's not even really, because if we're talking about, okay, how do I know if I'm, what's the question, dating a good man? I mean, even for people, I'm thinking about the people who are not dating and they're single and they are trying to prepare for somebody like who the Lord will bring into their life. Like, God, how do I help me to see what qualities and characteristics I should be looking for? And it's honestly better if you start that way versus trying to, you're already having strong emotions for somebody and trying to get them to kind of fit into this mold or trying to get God to approve them or whatever. But I think that like seeing somebody endure in their own life, and it's kind of like, when I hear that, you can think like, okay, doesn't everybody kind of endure? And it's true, unless, you don't. But I think about like, how you're enduring, and are you enduring still with joy, still with hope? Are you still pursuing the Lord? And like, even I thought about the certain boundaries people have in their lives, and like, are you still going to church even though you lost your job? Are you still worshiping God and seeking Him and reading your word even though you got this diagnosis or even though this tragedy happened in your life? And I think that like looking at people like that, like those are the type of people that you want to date, because if they can endure and still seek God through hard times, like you best believe that they're still going to show up and work hard for your family even when times get hard. And I remember like that's kind of how I felt about you. And 2 years ago when you had lost your job and we both weren't working, I was like, you know what? The type of man Tim is, like, I know he's going to get another job, and I know that he's going to do what he needs to do for our family. And, a lot of people would be down and out and fall into a depression in that type of circumstance, because I know jobs and working is such like a strong sense of confidence for men, and like when they're not able to work, it really punches them in the gut and they kind of feel like they're fallen and they can't get up. And some women have to take on kind of tasks and things like that, or a lot of guys would start to do things that are less than honorable as a result of that depression, or kind of saying like, oh, I need to do this to provide for my family. But I think that's what I'm talking about, the boundaries of like, when certain circumstances come up in someone's life, are they like godly? Are they a man of honor as long as everything is going well? Or is it like, oh, as soon as things start to get hard, are they dropping their standards?
I lost my job, time to hit the block.
Yeah, I mean, you're calling up, old boy from around the way that you grew up with. Like, I'm serious, like these things happen, and it's like, yeah, everything was good until it wasn't. And that's why there's so much value in dating for a significant amount of time. Obviously that means different things to different people. Can't put a number on it. A lot of people say a year. I think that's great if you can do that. Some people can't do that, and that's fine too. But I think that, you need to see people go through hard things. You need to see them walk through, some disappointment while you're dating, and see how they handle that. Because, again, a lot of people put their best foot forward and look nice and can wine and dine you and make you laugh. And, like, it's kind of like, I think the Bible talks about this in Proverbs, how it's like it's so easy to have friends when you have money, but then when you lose your job and everything kind of hits the fan, poor people have no friends.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about like actual literally poor, like no money. It's just more about like, are you poor in spirit? Are you poor in encouragement? Are you going through a hard time? And even like when you go through that, it's a test, honestly, while you're dating somebody too. Like, oh, we're cool and you love me because I can take you out and spend money on you. But the second, you know, something happens, you don't want to date me anymore. Like
21 Questions.
Yeah, like,
reminded me that song I really said.
Oh, would you love me if I was down and out? But yeah,
but I just want to highlight what you were saying. That's really good, and I do think that's why it is very valuable to date and see people in as many different circumstances as possible. Because if you date long enough, you will see them go through a hard time because that's life.
Right.
You're going to hit hard times. I remember when we were dating and Pauline lost her job. And I remember you calling me on the phone and you were not happy. You were very sad and very distraught. Yeah. And I had to see, how are you going to bounce back from that?
Yeah.
Are you just going to let life happen to you and have no fight back and no get back? And
no get back.
Just be like, oh, woe is me? Yeah. Or are you going to let your emotions out, talk to the Lord, trust Him as you're waiting through the process, and then get up and get back up on your feet? And I think that's really important to be able to see. You, I'm sure you saw me go through things that weren't good, and hopefully I passed the test. And those are all really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved your overview of
another brownie point for her to be able to be like, yeah, I remember that moment. Sorry.
The fact that you're fishing for it is why I'm just letting it out there.
Ooh, I'm just kidding.
Kid. There's a little bit of truth to every joke.
I don't know if that's true.
Anyway, I loved your overview of 1 Corinthians. Very biblical, very man of God. I love that.
Man of God.
Yeah. What I wanted to add to this question, or how do you know if you're dating a good man, really comes from like, it's all rooted in the same things that you share, but I guess it's coming from like an emotional standpoint, and really relational. I think that it has started when we got together and when we were really dating, and it's been confirmed, you know, as our marriage has progressed and as I've gotten to know even more couples and more men that I respect, like guys, men of God that I respect, of just how hard it is for adults and for guys to have really strong friendships and really strong community. And I think that it's harder for some guys more than others based on personalities and all those different things and like just their family makeup. But I think that if you are dating a guy or looking to date a guy and you're like interested in him, if he has really strong community, and I'm not even talking about like 12, 15 people, I'm talking about like 2, 3 friends, mentors, brothers, something like that, another male that you also respect, that is his, like in his close circle, he would call a friend that he somewhat regularly interacts with, that's a really good sign to me. Because there are so many guys that are like, oh, he's attractive, he goes to church, you know, I think he loves God from what I can see, but he's a lone wolf. And a lot of guys, like, I respect it takes time to build up those relationships, and you know, if you're starting over, like, you know, take your time, do you, I respect it. But also, I need to see that you're trying, you know, that you're going out, that you are part of small groups, connect groups, whatever, that you are, you know, trying to connect with your cousins, your brothers, like friends from college, whatever it is, because there's just so many guys who are lone wolves and they like want to be that way. And I don't think that it's intentional that they have a sign on their forehead that says like, leave me alone, friends. But I think that deep down, that's their way of trying to protect themselves because they've been hurt by other friends or like maybe mentor, father figure. So many of us have father wounds and things like that, and I think it hits different for guys, especially if they are already a father themselves, or they are kind of a lot of their friends are fathers, and they're kind of thinking about like, okay, I'm around that age where I definitely could have kids soon if I were to get married or whatever. So I think that that's a huge, 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 it can be really good, a green flag if they have that, or a red flag if they don't. And it's one of those things I think girls overlook because we're so kind of swarmed by community that it's like, oh, well, he doesn't need to have good friends. I have good friends. So my friends can become his friends. And it's like, well, yes, but also no, because he doesn't trust them. Like, he's going to trust his own people. He's not going to open up to them and be vulnerable with them. And he also just needs other men. And if you have, as a female, if you have men in your family, fathers, brothers, uncles, things like that are going to wrap their arms around your future husband, like, that's amazing. And like, but you have to think of those as bonus, just the same way as like you have your own set of parents, he'll have his own set of parents. Like, your parents can love him like a son, but he'll never be their son. He didn't raise them. They don't have that history, that trust. And the same thing, I believe, applies for friendships. So yeah, don't overlook that. There's so many girls who I've spoken with who are like, yeah, he's great, this, that, checks all these boxes, but like, he has no friends. And like, the deeper they get into their relationship, they're seeing how much of a problem that is, and how it puts a lot of pressure on their relationship. Not that he's even like, kind of emotionally dumping on the girlfriend or on the wife, but it's more about she feels kind of panicked of like, he's not talking to me, so who is he talking to? Like, I don't know. Like, I would feel better if he wasn't talking to me, knowing that, okay, he has his brother, his friends, his pastor, whatever. So don't pigeonhole yourself by not prioritizing that in the beginning. And I'm not even saying like break up with somebody or don't date somebody because they don't have this, but I think it's a conversation worth having and like kind of emphasizing like, hi, I would really like to meet or get to know, even just hear about, some people that are important to you, and why they're important to you. And if he's like, I don't do that, then just kind of explore, and maybe, the Lord can use that to show him how important it is.
Yeah, for sure. I know you got some other stuff, so I'll let you keep rolling.
The other thing I would say is a guy that doesn't do secrets. So obviously, I know you as a female don't want to be lied to or don't want anybody keeping a secret from you, because that's, betrayal and trust and all that stuff can be broken. But also, it's more important to notice it in his other relationships. So if something is coming up at work, with family, with friends, whatever, where he's like, oh, such and such is happening, but I didn't tell my boss that this is, what's really going on. And it's like, but okay, well, but why? Oh, well, because if I do, then she'll react that way and this will happen. So don't you want to be a man, of honor? And like, I'm not saying respond that way, but I just think in the back of your mind, you need to kind of notice, is this a pattern? Because if he can lie and withhold information from other people, he can definitely do it, and probably is doing it to you. Mm-hmm. And that's extreme red flag. Guys, again, what I have noticed, not in Tim, but in other men that I've gotten to know over the years, is like a lot of times men find themselves kind of like in the role of protector. And I do believe that the Lord has called them, especially when you have a family. But a lot of times they try to protect the women in their lives and other people, friends too, of like protecting them emotionally by like, I'm not going to tell them kind of like any more than what they need to know, which is fine, kind of like on the surface. But also a lot of times it's not up to you to decide, kind of what a person needs to know to feel safe. And when you kind of take the role of protector, you also have to know that you could possibly be betraying trust when you are withholding information.
Betraying trust.
Betraying trust is not what I said.
It's not like you said portraying.
Oh, but. Betraying. Yes, betraying and breaking somebody's trust. So I just think that's one of those things that like when people are dating a woman, like you get into a few years of marriage and then you realize, okay, you didn't tell me this, you didn't tell me that. okay, that's fine, but then now it's building and it's growing. Oh, well, last time you told me you didn't want to know this or that, and it's like, no, but only in XYZ circumstance. And then you look back and you kind of see like, he actually acts this way in other relationships too, like with work or family or friends or whatever. So I just think that's really important that you share that, hey, I know maybe I have an emotional reaction to things sometimes. And like we had to have that conversation when we were dating. I'm like, hey, I know that you were afraid that I was going to be upset about this. And I am upset and I was upset, but you still need to tell me, just for the sake of trust. Like I don't want to ever question in the back of my mind, what else are you not telling me? Because it's just really, really hard to repair and takes a long time when you could be running, laughing, joking, enjoying your relationship. So a guy that doesn't hold secrets is really, really important. I would 100 times take a guy who just rather would say, hey, here's it all on the surface level. I'm not talking about secrets are not details. Secrets are important facts and information. If somebody wants to know more information, they'll ask. So example, something like this. Just like you shouldn't be dating someone for 6 months and not know what they do for work. Now, if they're a CIA operative, they're probably not going to tell you that. But they might say, I work for the federal government. That's fine. Good enough for me. But it doesn't need to be details. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying you have to show me a picture of your child. You have to introduce me to your child. You have to tell me your child's social security number. I just want to know that you're a parent. That will really cover all of the bases I need to know for this level of our commitment or our relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you just went real left field with that example, but I feel you. It makes sense. What's the next thing?
Okay. I'm going to spell for you. The last thing is that I love, and one of my favorite things about Tim, is a guy who is humble, who values other people's opinions and admits when he's wrong. Now, we kind of already talked about this when it comes to, like, you know, being godly and emulating what the, biblical version of love, and, like, not always, he's not always going to hit it. But a guy who admits when wrong and apologizes is so huge for me, for reasons I will not get into. But I think that
Is that a secret?
Is what a secret?
You say you're not going to get into it. I'm just messing with you. Go ahead.
Trying to keep yourself entertained. I get it.
Wow. No, that's
but yeah, I think that, like, you want to hear kind of stories or situations of a guy who's like, yeah, I had this, I had a review at work and my boss gave me this feedback that I really didn't like. And I was like, kind of, mad when she was telling me about it. But afterwards I thought, and I'm like, you know what? She's kind of right. Like, I can improve on this, and I did make that mistake, and I did have this, type of impact. And somebody who's able to say, like, who can basically take advice. And the Bible talks about that how important it is to take heed to wise counsel and submit to authority. Guys who are going off and just constantly saying, like, oh, well, she told me this or he told me that, and they need to check themselves. It's like, well, but you're not doing what you are saying that they should do. Take your own advice. And Tim's much better at this than I am, and I've learned a lot from him when it comes to that, because, like, sometimes just opinions and things can be very personal, and it hits, like, a place of insecurity in us. But it's okay to take feedback, and the reason why that's really important to see him doing that in other areas of his life is because marriage is going to be constant 24/7 feedback. And you want to know, like, obviously you're going to do your best to give it in a way that's gracious and loving, and you're going to time it right and all that stuff. But sometimes, like, at the end of the day, if somebody just doesn't want to hear your feedback, like, it's going to be a pretty rough relationship. And I find, like, as wives, the Lord calls us helpers, which is, such an honor, and it is our duty to help our husbands. But it's really hard to help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. And that's pretty much, the case of somebody who doesn't want to take advice. Is you're saying, I don't need your help. I don't need your help, mom, boss, brother, whoever is giving the feedback. And, like, I have to and still continue to try to train myself to say, okay, this person is giving feedback because they want to help, because they're trying to make me better. They're seeing an opportunity for growth. And I know that that's kind of the corporate way of saying it. And it is true to think of it that way. It's an opportunity. Here's some opportunities for growth. It's not really like negative feedback or whatever. And that's going to obviously help him grow, help you grow better than positive feedback will. So that's a really huge thing to look for, just in other areas of his life, not even in your relationship, because you won't probably be giving a lot of constructive feedback, in the beginning.
Yeah, and one practical thing I just thought of in response to being humble and seeing if they can take feedback and value others' opinions is, do you ever hear them talk about that they're praying about situations in their life? Like if you're dating somebody, you never hear them saying, yeah, I'm talking to the Lord about this, or I'm praying about that. Like that's a red flag, because it's showing that they're trying to do everything in their own strength.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure you're with somebody who knows that they need the Lord, who know that they're not breathing the oxygen they created. They are not looking out of the eyes that they created. Like everything that they have is because of the Lord, and all their gifts and talents have come from Him, and knowing that they still need Him in order to do all that He's asked them to do is important, because you can be with somebody who looks like they are a Christian, but they're not actually relying on their source, which is God.
It's very easy to get into like religiosity of like just going through the motions of things. And
that's a problem.
Yeah.
But really good stuff. We hope we gave you a lot of different things to chew on. You may need to rewatch this and take it one step at a time when you're evaluating somebody. And also, just please remember, hear our heart. We're not talking about perfection. Nobody's perfect. But as Pauline said to begin this, it's about the intention and the results, though. Like, faith without works is dead. So like, we actually need to see the intention that you have lived out in the flesh. But if you see that and you know that they have the intent to do right, then you know that you got yourself a good, quote-unquote, man.
A good man. He's a good man.
So, this has been another episode of the W Podcast. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this video.
To get more Christian relationship advice, subscribe to our channel.
And make sure you check out our other videos as well.